Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to a Q&A video. I haven't done one of these in like 2 or 3 years. It's been quite a long time, so I'm quite excited to be here and I get to do this with you guys, as I want you lots at home to kind of be a bit more familiar with who I am as a person, as I'm kind of a character behind the microphone and camera lens itself. Okay, I just got one shot. What the actual fuck? Now, before we quickly do jump on to the questions, I do want to say thank you again for all of the crazy support recently, especially with the integration of God of War to the channel. And second of all, and most importantly, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you who are celebrating it on this fine day. I hope you all get what you want and have a lovely time with your loved ones. Now, just before we jump to questions here, I'm going to let you know that I haven't covered every single question that was sent in, mostly because some people kind of ended up asking the same questions, or some questions that didn't really fall into the format of the Q&A that would have been way too long. So I do apologize if your questions here didn't quite make the cut, but I'm pretty sure I do have 19 questions on hand here that will talk about myself, the channel, as I know there are many of you who don't really know me behind the camera, and I want to kind of build that bridge and relationship with some of the older fans of the channel, as well as the new ones who may only be familiar with me from my God of War content. Now, with that said, let's get started, shall we? Now, our first question is from Lower of Law, and they ask, I honestly wonder what other games would you be willing to cover in the future, if any at all possible? Well, if we are talking about just games outside of fighting games, as this ties into the next question, I would really be interested in kind of tackling something like Devil May Cry again. I've kind of shelved that series for the time being. I do want to go back to that at some point. And I'm also a super big fan of From Software games because I love the world that's behind them. But you already have content creators like Vati talking about them. So I don't really know if I'll ever be able to bring that sort of stuff to the channel, as, you know, there's content like that already out there and it's way better than mine. So off the top of my head, I probably couldn't actually really give you guys a retrospective on it. Maybe on the next Witcher game? We will have to wait and see. I'm a big fan of the Witcher series, which you could probably tell from yesterday's video. Shameless plug. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of the Witcher series. That's definitely one I would like to tackle. So as of right now, I'm not really sure because we keep getting a ton of games delayed, but I would like to talk about The Witcher at some point in the future. Our next question is from X Xavier the God. Hope I said that right. His question is there any fighting game franchise characters you want to cover on the channel? And the answer to that question is yes. I would love to cover and talk about Killer Instinct. If I'm honest, the main reason as to why I have not actually touched Killer Instinct properly is because I'm waiting on another KI game so I can talk about it when everyone's hyped for it, because I don't want to talk about it now because not as many people are into it. So I'm waiting for us to get more news about it, but rest assured, Killer Instinct on the table. Want to talk about that. As for any other fighting game franchise, I don't really know right about now. I really want to get involved with Project L once it's ready. I'm trying to familiarize myself with the world as we speak. I'm actually watching Arcane at the moment, and I really am enjoying it. So we will have to see what's going on with that moving forward. I don't know if I'll do like lore videos on that universe, as I'm pretty sure there's another content creator in that field that already does it. But regardless of that, I would love to be involved with Project L. Our next question is from Bethlaria81. Where's HSO? I'm going to presume that's Su Hao. In the bin where he belongs, because I hate that character. I don't even ironically hate him. I just think he's trash. Fuck you, Su Hao. You suck. On to our next question, and it's from Jar Mari Blunt. God, I suck at pronouncing names. You wouldn't think that with what I do here on the channel. Question is, what is your favorite video game character and why? That is a really hard question for me to answer, I'm not gonna lie. If I'm going strictly by video game characters, you know what? Yeah, no, I do have an answer. I can't really separate the two because I will always kind of pair the two together. I'd probably say that my favorite video game character of all time is the Master Chief, and I would also have to pair the Master Chief with Cortana because those two go together so incredibly well. I was a Halo fan before I was a Mortal Kombat fan, and whilst the series kind of dropped off for a long time, Halo Infinite's campaign really hit close to home for me and reminded me why I love the Chief and why I love Cortana. Those first 3 games are like straight up like my favorite trilogy of all time. Those games are very special to me. So it'll be the Master Chief and Cortana. I can't have one without the other, I'll be honest. Now, our next question is from Stephanie. I know you've been asked this question before, but I don't think I've ever seen it myself. But what got you into video games or Mortal Kombat in the first place? Was it Mortal Kombat first into video games, or the other way around? That's actually a pretty good question. So, my oldest memory of me playing video games was, I think it must have been the early 2000s. I went over to my friend's house, Ruben, and he'd gotten the new Microsoft console, the Xbox, that came with Halo Combat Evolved. That was my first ever memory of playing a game, as well as playing a FPS game. Hence why, as I mentioned, the Master Chief is so important to me as a person. And I remember being absolutely mesmerized by the universe and just sucked into it. I remember I even convinced my parents to buy me the original Halo at like an extremely young age, and I remember being absolutely terrified of doing the flood level, so I did not play it for many years. So yeah, that's a fun story as for the first game that I ever played, or kind of got me into gaming. As for my first Mortal Kombat game, this goes back quite a long time ago. I think I must have been 12 or 14, and I went over to my cousin's house, and growing up, I didn't have a console. So when I went over to his place and I stayed there for like 3 or 4 weeks, pretty much every single day, I just ended up playing games. And eventually, I came across Mortal Kombat Deception. I was first introduced to Mortal Kombat when I was very young, as I had seen the movie, but my parents were like, nope, you're not watching that, too violent. So, as a very young teenager, I kind of reintroduced myself to the series in Mortal Kombat Deception, and since then, I've just kind of been a lifelong fan of the series. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into gaming. Started off with Halo, and it was Mortal Kombat that kind of captured my imagination in my teen years. Our next question is from Edgar Navejar. He asks, what motivated you to be a YouTuber? Well, it's a pretty interesting story. This was actually, it was more by luck than anything else. When I got into YouTube, I was in a place in my life where I wasn't very happy or satisfied with what was going on. Basically, throughout my entire time of secondary school and college, I was forced to be a musician. That wasn't really my dream. I wanted to get involved with games, but my parents ended up forcing me in that direction, and I didn't really have a choice. And when I was finally put in a situation where I didn't have my parents around me, I just kind of fell out of love with it. And it was also around the age of 16 where I started to get involved with games. And the year before I got into university, I saw a trailer for Mortal Kombat X. Eventually, when I was in university, I got completely burned out, and I didn't really want to do anything, which is really bad, because I'm naturally a very creative person. I have a lot of creative drive, and when that's instantly sapped from me, I was just kind of stuck in a room doing nothing. And I'll be honest, I slowly felt my sanity kind of leave my body, and eventually it got to the point where I started to see more promotional bits of material for Mortal Kombat X, and I wanted to learn more about the characters and the universe, but there were no videos or resources at the time to understand this very rich world and universe. So I took the job upon myself to actually make those videos, and well, it's been a 6-year journey. So yeah, that's kind of where the origin of the channel started from. There's a lot more stuff to that story, but that is what it is on a basic level. Our next question is from Ray Hayes. What are your favorite videos that you worked on from all gaming franchises you have covered? Now, from all game franchises, I can't really say, because I've covered a lot in my time, and I'm not gonna lie, those first like 3 or 4 years worth of videos I'm not particularly proud of, mostly because the quality like from now to then completely different. But if I were to pick the videos I'm probably the most proud of, I'd say there's 3 that I'm extremely proud of. The first one was the Mortal Kombat X comic book series, where I had Sean Kittleson, the writer for the comic books, basically come on and explain the second wave of comics that were never published that he did have in mind and, kind of planned out from the first series. That was a really special thing for me because me and Sean are actually friends, and we were introduced to each other because we were fans of each other's work. That was a very special project for me to work on, and I'm a big fan of the comic book series. I know that the comics have been retconned, but as far as I'm concerned, they are canon as fuck. And I'm not gonna let one of their wrong decisions basically erase that video. So that video I am incredibly proud of. The second one is where I basically data mined MK9 and pulled out all of the assets and kind of made a video about everything that's in the game that wasn't used. This involved character models, the early versions of Scarlet, to arcade ladder endings that were never used, as well as exploring Shao Kahn's moveset, as he had a way more fleshed out moveset in the early development of Mortal Kombat 9. So yeah, that's another good one. And then the final one that I was very proud of was once again a video of Sean, where he came on the channel and basically explained how NRS kind of storyboard their games. So I highly encourage anyone to explore those 3 videos, as I would personally consider those as my favorite videos on the channel. I don't ever watch back my own content because I start to nitpick it to death, but those 3 videos are ones that I'm very proud of. Our next question is from Gabrielle Acevicado. Favorite game console and game? Okay, I guess we're going back to Halo in that respect. It is Halo 3 on the Xbox 360. That was the first game I ever played on the 360, and the 360 was also the first console I ever bought and owned. I paid for that thing with my own money, very late to do so, but I ended up doing it anyway, and the memories I have of me and my friends from college coming over to my place, where there was 4 of us and we just played Halo 3 for like hours on end, are memories that will stay with me for a lifetime. Those were such great times in my youth, and I will not forget it. Our next question is from Marvel DC Combat, and he asks, did you ever expect your channel to be as popular as it is? Honestly, I'm gonna try to answer this in a humble way. I would never ever consider my channel to be, you know, super duper popular, but I'm very proud and very happy with the position I'm in, with what I get to do with this livelihood, because it's truly something that's unbelievably rewarding. Now, as for the success that came with the channel, I did not expect any of this to be a thing. Like, I was a student out, down on my luck, living somewhere I didn't want to be, doing a course that I didn't want, and along with that, basically no one had faith in me to do what I was doing. Like, the only person that really supported me at the very start was my mother. Outside of that, everyone said it was kind of a mistake, and that me dropping out of my university course was going to be something I'd regret for my entire life. Kind of the best decision I ever made. Our next question is from Christian Jamie CTZ. That's a long name. Hi Christian. I'm not going to say the rest of your name, but I appreciate the question nonetheless. When did you come up with the idea of making God of War video? Well, for those of you who are kind of old to the channel, you'll probably know that for the longest time I was kind of trying to find a game to bring to the channel that wasn't strictly fighting games. I forced myself into a genre for the longest amount of time, and whilst I love this genre, the last few years for it as a content creator haven't been all that fantastic. I'm not a fan of the new style that we're kind of implementing to fighting games, where it's all about footsies and space control. I'm all about crazy combos and eccentrically expressing yourself in the most ridiculous ways possible, and because of that, I kind of fell out of love with fighting games. Like, even now, I'm still kind of burnt out on the genre. I think MK11 was the game for me that kind of like had me put my foot down and go, I need to find a game or series that I really love and can enjoy again. And no disrespect to Mortal Kombat 11 by any intents and purposes. If you love it, I'm really glad that you can enjoy that game. But for me, it's just not my personal taste. So I wanted to look for a game that embodied the values of Mortal Kombat, but tailors to a channel like my own. One where there's a rich lore world and story behind it. What better franchise is there than God of War? You know, that universe has gone on for such a long time and has such interesting lore, characters, universe, the twisted interpretation of both the Greek and Nordic gods. It's a really fun play on established mythoses, so I feel like the jump to God of War felt pretty natural in that respect. So going over to God of War was like a mix of a bunch of different factors, but ever since I have kind of rekindled a lost love for content creation. You know, I don't feel like I'm retreading the same ground over and over again. So this was very needed for me as a creative individual, and I have absolutely no regrets, as now that people are enjoying that sort of content, it means that in the future I won't be scared to tackle anything that I'm personally interested in, which is mostly what I want to do for the channel. Whilst it's history behind the warrior, I do play other games outside of fighting games. People tend to forget that from time to time. Now on to our next question, and it's from MyFight23. Which fighting game franchise is the most consistent in terms of story, characters, and appeal? That's actually a really solid question, and I'm not gonna lie, it's actually quite a hard one to answer. If I'm going by in terms of cohesive storytelling with characters, where power levels kind of of stay the same for the most part, I am going to probably say Tekken. Tekken's storyline is pretty streamlined from start to finish. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of dumb and really hokey shit that happens from time to time, and whilst its writing is not fantastic at times, as there's a lot of questions that are left unanswered, looks at where Jun Kazama could be and wonders how Akuma got to the universe. I think it's a pretty fun series, and the arcade ladder ending format, whilst, you know, not the greatest form of storytelling, it at least makes it so there aren't like 50 different iterations of the same story. Like, each different version of Street Fighter has a different story tied to it. Shit was unbelievably complicated. Our next question is from Nataville Tupac. Who's your favorite female fighter from Mortal Kombat of all time? Well, because I was introduced to Mortal Kombat Deception, my favorite female character is actually Jade. Jade's costumes in that game they're just so good. Her costume design in that game that's like peak Jade for me. Like, nothing can beat that costume. It's so well designed. It takes elements from the old core design as well as adding some new stuff to it, and for the longest time the character had been sidelined, so to see her actually get a little bit of love and limelight was really nice for the character. I think she needed it. So my favorite female character is actually Jade. Although in saying that, I absolutely hate how she plays in Mortal Kombat 11. Our next question is from R. Boshoff. The question is, what do you think if the next Injustice game where we follow the Blackest Knight? I think that would be a pretty interesting and compelling storyline. There are tons of characters that are dead in the Injustice universe, so I would actually be down to see them coming back. If we're gonna bring in the Blackest Knight story arc, I feel like it's only right to kind of mix the Blackest Knight arc with something involving Darkseid. And I think with how he deals with the anti-life equation, it kind of works well with the Blackest Knight arc. I know the idea of it was toyed with in the Dark Multiverse series, so I would like to see a version of that in some way, shape and form. Our next question is from Stardust, and he asks, who is my favorite YouTuber? Well, this answer kind of fluctuates, but a content creator that I find is very consistent and someone who I enjoy basically every time I watch him is Dead Meat. James's channel is so unbelievably consistently good. It's kind of a bar that I think all YouTubers should strive to reach. His production value, his writing, his charisma on camera is truly something that everyone should try to have. You know, I feel like what he has is a full, well-rounded product, and along with this, I'm a sucker for the horror genre, so he does a great job of analyzing what goes on in front of the camera as what goes on behind the camera. So if I ever were to recommend a channel for people to explore, it's definitely Dead Meat. Our next question is from Enzenwa Anyowu, and he asks, are there any collaboration you'd want to do on YouTube video wise? But asked, what videos and styles inspired your work? Well, in terms of collaboration, as weird as this might sound, I don't tend to watch other content creators that work in the same field that I do. I know that probably sounds very strange, but here's the thing, right? And it comes with kind of being a lore story-based channel. We all kind of live in this awkward hemisphere of where we talk about very similar things, and we approach things in different angles, and we talk about it in video. And what I try to do with my content is not have it line up with anyone else's. It allows my own work to feel unique to the community, and it really does also help that not only do I feel like my ideas feel more organic that way, but it also allows me to not feel like I'm stealing another person's idea. That's something I really don't want to do, because I will end up doing something like that subconsciously and not realizing that it's happened. If I were to give two off the top of my head, one for God of War, one for Mortal Kombat, I love working with P&D Ketchup. He's been a great mentor for me when it's come to commentary. And if it's for God of War, I think someone who everyone recognizes and really holds up in high esteem, and I don't blame them, is Captain Kuba. His work ethic and dedication to the community of God of War is nothing short of just godlike. When there was no news, he still stuck around, he still put out content on a regular basis, and he was very committed to what he was doing. Those are two people I would definitely love to work with in the future. As for my video and editing style, it's kind of hard to say, because in front of the camera there's obviously a lot of very quick cuts. I think that comes from a lot of my influence from watching Jeremy Jam's videos. You know, I like being able to have very quick cut and tidy content. I don't like leaving little awkward bits of audio in between, and that's mostly due to the fact that I don't want there to be dead air when I'm doing one of these videos. I find it kind of awkward if I'm just mouth breathing into the microphone. You guys don't need to hear that. Trust me. So that was probably my influence for how I edit my videos and how I approach my content. Now, our next question is from Legendary. Would you say YouTube has been rewarding and had a positive impact on you? Oh, without a doubt. I would not really know what I would be doing with my life if I didn't have YouTube. Like, I was stuck in a situation where I either had to commit to something I really didn't enjoy and put myself in debt and probably get a job that I didn't want, or leave and pursue the equivalent of a childhood dream. I was denied the opportunity to pursue what I loved for the longest time. So what I'm doing now is basically making up for that lost time. I'm pursuing a childhood dream that I hope to do for the rest of my life. Because if I'm honest, I can't see myself doing anything outside of this. This is truly something incredible. So YouTube has definitely made me a better person and definitely allowed me to express myself in a creative and positive way. Hopefully, a way that entertains all of you at home. Now, our next question is from Zach Taff. And this is a good question because I've actually been wanting to talk about this for a while. So when are you doing more Dead or Alive videos? Also, do you think Kazumi from Dead or Alive could face any of the Mortal Kombat ninjas in a battle? Well, Kazumi is a badass in her own right. And I 110% don't just think she could bring it to some of the Mortal Kombat ninjas, but also the other characters of the universe. She's a very well-versed fighter, and there's actually a fair few similarities between the two universes. So I think she could definitely hang up there with some of the best. As for the Dead or Alive content, I need to actually talk about this properly, and I haven't for the longest time on video. But the reason why I stopped making Dead or Alive videos, which means yes, they're pretty much cancelled for the time being, unfortunately, is because I was not happy with how Koei Tecmo decided to monetize the absolute fuck out of Dead or Alive 6. Like, it's one thing to sell your game at full price, it's another thing to sell your DLC at a price that is higher than your base game. Like, that's just disgusting. And along with this, it's all just skin packs. You're paying more for the girls to wear less. Like, just go to Rule 34. It's for free. Jokes aside, I was not really happy with how they monetized Dead or Alive 6. They took a bunch of skins all the way from Dead or Alive 5 and just ported them over to 6 and said the job was done. On top of that, I wasn't a fan of how they changed up the gameplay. And along with that, there was very mixed marketing with how the game was also trying to, like, say titties are bad, but in Japan titties are good. Dead or Alive, your fan service game, that's fine. Just be yourself. You stick to your roots, people will buy your game. Dead or Alive 6 is just like a tragic tale of a game losing its sense of identity and trying to force you to pay out of your pocket at every single turn. So that's why I stopped covering Dead or Alive on the channel. Now, our next and final question is from the Radio Q, who is/are your mains in the fighting games you play, and in God of War 2018, which armor and runic attacks do you like to use? The three main games that I do play are Mortal Kombat, Tekken 7, and Soul Calibur. For Mortal Kombat, I play Kotal Kahn, for Tekken 7, I play Armor King, and for Soul Calibur, I play Astaroth. I'm a big fan of command grab characters, so all of them have one in many different ways. Now, as for the God of War questions, the armor I tend to always use is the Valkyrie armor, because I feel like, you know, I've earned that armor, so I'm going to wear it at every instance. As for the runic attacks I use, it kind of varies. I'm actually in a place now when I'm playing the game, but I'm kind of messing around with the different runic attacks and seeing like what I can find. The normal ones that I used to use, on the Leviathan axe, I use the giant big toss and the anvil slam, and for the Blades of Chaos, I use the giant big spinny move thing. It's kind of Blades of Chaos in a nutshell. It's a really poor description of the move I use. The other one I use is the one where he brings down basically fire from the sky. That tends to be a really good way of dealing with like large groups of enemies. But yeah, that's kind of how I approach God of War in terms of gameplay. I don't try to look for the perfect build. I just play the game how I enjoy it. But yeah, guys, that's kind of it for this Q&A. It's been a lot longer than I expected, but in saying that, I do hope you have enjoyed it. I apologize if I didn't get around to every single person's question. Trust me, there were a lot of them, but if you enjoyed this, I'll probably do another one of these in the future, maybe on the 6 or 7 year anniversary of the channel. So if you're interested in that, please do comment down below. And if this video gets enough reception, then is pretty much guaranteed to happen next time. But in saying that, guys, that has really been it for me, but I do want to say Once again, Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of you. The last 2 years have really been difficult, obviously, with the giant sea virus kind of stopping everyone. So I hope you're all staying very well and safe at home. Please do cherish and spend time with your loved ones, because in times like this, nothing's really guaranteed. So if I could wish you guys anything as a gift from my end, is that you all have a safe bit of health going into the next year, and you stay strong out there, guys. Now on that note, guys, that has really been it for me. Once again, big love to all of you as well as your loved ones. I hope you enjoy the remainder of this year as we go into 2022 and we draw closer to Ragnarok's release date. We need an actual release date. I need it in my life. But anyway, guys, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as, well, Ragnarok's around the corner. But yes, take care everyone. See you soon.